Hello, and welcome to Story Time with Captain Party. This evening, we are reading Chapter 40 of Choke. So let's get started. Somewhere, northeast above Los Angeles, I was getting pretty sore, so I asked Tracy if she'd let up for a minute. This is another lifetime ago. And with a big hank of white spit looped between my knob and her lower lip, her whole face hot and flushed from choking, still holding my sore dog in her fist, Tracy settles back on her heels and says how in the Kama Sutra it tells you to make your lips really red by wiping them with sweat from the testicles of a white stallion. For real, she says. And now there's a weird taste in my mouth, and I look hard at her lips, and my dog the same big purple color, and I say, "You don't do that stuff, do you?" And the doorknob rattles, and we both look fast to make sure it's locked. This is that first time, what every addiction is about getting back to. That first time that no subsequent time is ever as good as. Nothing's worse than when a little kid opens the door. What's next worse is when some man throws open the door and doesn't understand. And even if you're still alone when a kid opens the door, you have to fast cross your legs and pretend it's all an accident. An adult guy might slam the door, might yell, "Lock it next time, you moron," but he's still the only one blushing. And after that, what's worse, Tracy says, is being a woman. The Kama Sutra would call an elephant woman, especially if you're with what they call a hare man. And this animal thing refers to genital size. And then she says, "I didn't mean that to sound the way it did." And the wrong person opens the door, and you're in their nightmares all week. Your best defense is unless somebody is on the make. No matter who opens the door and sees you sitting there, they always assume it's their mistake, their fault. I always did. I used to walk in on women or men riding the toilet on airplanes, on trains, or Greyhound buses, or in those little single-seat, either-or unisex restaurant bathrooms. And I'd open the door to see some stranger sitting there, some blonde, all blue eyes and teeth, with a ring through her navel, and wearing high heels with her G-string stretched down between her knees and the rest of her clothes, and the bra folded on a little counter next to the sink. And every time this happened, I'd always wonder, why the hell don't people bother to lock the door? As if any of this ever happens by accident. Nothing on the circuit happens by accident. It could be on a train somewhere between home and work. You'll open a bathroom door to find some brunette with her hair pinned up and only her long earrings trembling down alongside her smooth white neck, and she's just sitting inside with the bottom half of her clothes on the floor and her blouse open with nothing inside but her hands cupped under each breast, her fingernails, her lips, her nipples, all the same cross between brown and red, her legs as smooth and white as her neck, smooth as a car you could drive 200 miles an hour, and her hair the same brunette all over, and she licks her lips. And you slam the door and you say, "Sorry." And from somewhere deep inside she says, "Don't be." And she still doesn't lock the door, and the little sign is still saying, "Vacant." How this happens is, I used to fly round trip from East Coast to Los Angeles when I was still in medical program at USC during breaks in the school year. 6 times I opened the door on the same yoga redhead, naked from the waist down, with her skinny legs pulled up cross-legged on the toilet seat, filing her nails with a scratch pad of a matchbook, as if she's trying to catch herself on fire, wearing just a silky blouse knotted over her breasts. And 6 times she looks down at her freckled pink self with the road crew orange rug around it, and her eyes, the same gray tin metal, look up at me slow, and every time she says, "If you don't mind," she says, "I'm in here." And 6 times I slam the door in her face, and all I can think to say is, "Don't you speak English?" 6 times. And she says, "Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I just thought, oh, whoops. Skip a page. This all takes less than a minute, and there isn't time to think, but it happens more and more often. And some other trips, maybe cruising altitude between Los Angeles and Seattle, you'll open the door on some surfer blonde with both tanned hands wrapped around his big purple dog. And Mr. Cooler shakes the stringy hair off his eyes and points his dog and squeezes shiny wet inside the gloss rubber. He points this straight at you and he says, "Hey man, make the time." It gets to be every time you go to the bathroom, the little sign that says vacant. But there's always somebody in there. And another woman 2 knuckles deep and disappearing into herself. And a different man, his 4 inches dancing between his thumb and forefinger, primed and ready to cough up little white soldiers. And you begin to wonder, just what do they mean by vacant? And even in an empty bathroom, you find the smell of spermicidal foam. The paper towels are always used up. You'll see the bare print foot on the bathroom mirror 6 feet up near the top of the mirror, and the little arched print of the woman's foot, the 5 round spots left by her toes, and you wonder, what happened here? Like with coded public announcements, the Blue Danube Waltz, or Nurse Flamingo, you wonder, what's going on? You wonder, what aren't they telling us? And you'll see a smear of lipstick on the wall, down almost to the floor, and you can only imagine what was going on. There's the dried white stripes from the last pull-out moment when somebody's dog tosses white soldiers against the plastic wall. Some flights the wall will still be wet to the touch, and the mirror fogged, and the carpet sticky, and the sink drain is sucked full, choked with every little color of curled hair. On the bathroom counter, next to the sink, is a perfect round outline in jelly, contraceptive jelly and mucus of where somebody set her diaphragm. Some flights, there's 2 or 3 different sizes of perfect round outlines. And these are the domestic leg of longer flights, trans-Pacific flights over the pole, 10 to 16-hour flights, direct flights, Los Angeles to Paris, or from anywhere to Sydney. My Los Angeles trip number 7, the yoga redhead whips her skirt off the floor and hurries out after me. Still zipping herself up to the back, she trails me all the way to my seat and sits next to me saying, "If your goal is to hurt my feelings, you could really give lessons." And she's got this shining soap opera kind of hairdo, only now her blouse is buttoned with big floppy bow in the front, everything pinned down, and a big jewelry brooch. And I say it again, sorry. This is westbound, somewhere northwest, above Atlanta. Listen to me, she says. I work just too hard to take this kind of shit, do you hear me? You say, I'm sorry. I'm on the road 3 weeks out of every month. And she says, I'm paying for a house I never see, soccer camp for my kids. Just the cost of my dad's nursing home is incredible. Don't I deserve something? I'm not bad looking. The least you could do is not shut the door in my face. This is really what she says. And she ducks down to put her face between me and the magazine I'm pretending to read. Don't make like you don't know, she says. It's not like sex is anything secret. And I say, sex? And she puts a hand over her mouth and she sits back and she says, oh gosh, I'm sorry, I just thought. And she reaches up to push the little red stewardess button. A flight attendant comes past and the redhead orders 2 double bourbons. And I say, I hope you're planning to drink them both. And she says, actually, they're both for you. And this would be my first time. That first time that no subsequent time is ever as good as. Don't let's fight, she says, and gives me her cool white hand. I'm Tracy. A better place this could have happened is a Lockheed TriStar 500 with its strip mall of 5 large bathrooms isolated in the rear of the tourist class cabin, spacious, soundproof, behind everybody's back where they can't see who comes and goes. Compared to that, you have to wonder what kind of animal designed the Boeing 747-400, where it seems every bathroom opens into a seat. For any real discretion, you have to trek back to the toilets in the back of the rear tourist cabin. Forget the single lower-level sidewall bathroom of the business class unless you want everybody to know what you've got going. It's simple. If you're a guy, how it works is you sit in the bathroom with your Uncle Charlie whipped out, you know, the big red panda, and you work him up to parade attention, you know, the full upright position, and then you just wait in your little plastic room and you hope for the best. Think of it as fishing. If you're a Catholic, it's the same feeling as sitting in a confessional. The waiting, the release, the redemption. Think of it as a catch and release fishing, what people call sport fishing. The other way, how it works, is you just open doors until you find something you like. It's the same as the old game show where whatever door you choose is the prize you take home. It's the same as the Lady and the Tiger. Behind some doors, it's somebody expensive back from first class for some slumming, a little cabin class rough trade. Let's chance she'll meet somebody she knows. Behind other doors, you'll get some aged beef with his brown tie thrown back over one shoulder, his hairy knees spread against the wall on each side, petting his leathery dead snake, and then he says, "Sorry, buddy, nothing personal." Those times you'll be too grossed out even to say, "Ugh," as if. Or, "In your dreams, buddy." Still, the reward rate is just great enough to keep you pushing your luck. The tiny space, the toilet, 200 strangers, just a few inches away. Oh, it's so exciting. And the lack of room to maneuver it helps if you're double jointed. Use your imagination, some creativity, and a few simple stretching exercises, and you can be knocking on heaven's door, and you'll be amazed how fast the time flies. Half the thrill is the challenge, the danger, the risk. So it's not the great American West or the race to the South Pole or being the first man to walk on the moon. It's a different kind of space exploration. You're mapping a different kind of wilderness, your own vast interior landscape. It's the last frontier to conquer, other people's strangers, the jungle of their arms and legs, hair and skin, the smells and moans that is everybody you haven't done, the great unknowns, the last forest to devastate. Here's everything you've only imagined. You're Christopher Columbus sailing over the horizon. You're the first caveman to risk eating an oyster. Maybe this particular oyster isn't new, but it's new to you. Suspended in the nowhere in the halfway 14 hours between Heathrow and Joburg, you can have 10 true life adventures, 12 if the movie's bad, more if the flight's full, less if there's turbulence, more if you don't mind a guy's mouth doing the job, less if you return to your seat during meal service. What's not so great about that first time is when I'm drunk and first getting bounced on by the redhead, by Tracy, what happens is we hit an air pocket. Me gripping the toilet seat, I drop with the plane, but Tracy's blasted off, champagne popping off me with the rubber still inside, hitting the plastic ceiling with her hair. My trigger goes the same instant, and my gob suspended in the air, weightless, hanging white soldiers in the midway between her still against the ceiling and me still on the can, and then slam, we come back together, her and the rubber and me and my gob planted back down on me, reassembled, pop bead style, all 100 pounds of her, 100 plus pounds of her. And after those kind of good times, it's a wonder I'm not wearing a truss. And Tracy laughs and says, "Ooh, I love it when that happens." And after that, just normal turbulence bounces her hair in my face and her nipples against my mouth, bounces the pearls around her neck, the gold chain around my neck jiggles and juggles my dice in their sack pulled up tight over the empty bowl. Here and there you pick up little tips to improve your performance. Those old French super caravels, for example, with their triangular windows for real curtains, they have no first-class toilet, only two in the back of tourists, so you'd best not try anything fancy. Your basic tantric position works okay. Both of you standing face to face, the woman lifts one leg along the side of your thigh, and you go at it the same as in splitting the reed, or the classic flanquette. Write your own Kama Sutra. Make stuff up. Go ahead. You know you want to. And this is assuming the two of you are anywhere close to the same height. Otherwise, I cannot be blamed for what happens. And don't expect to get spoon-fed here. I'm assuming some basic knowledge on your part. Even if you're stuck on a Boeing 757-200, even in the tiny forward toilet, you can still manage a modified Chinese position where you're sitting on the toilet and the woman settles into you, facing away. Somewhere northeast above Little Rock, Tracy tells me, Pampois would make this a snap. It's when Albanian women just milk you with their constrictor vaginae muscles. They jerk you off with just their insides. Tracy says, yeah. Albanian women? Yeah. I say, do they have an airline? Something else you learn is, when a flight attendant comes knocking, you can wrap things up fast with the Florentine method, where the woman grips the man around the base, pulls his skin back tight to make it more sensitive. This speeds up the process considerably. To slow things down, press hard on the underside of the base of the man. Even if this doesn't stop the event, the whole mess will back up into his bladder and save you both a lot of cleanup. Experts call this Saxonus. The redheaded me in the big rear bathroom of a McDonnell Douglas DC 10 Series 30 CF. She shows me the negress position, where she gets her knees up on either side of the sink, and I press my open hands on the back of her pale shoulders. Her breath fogging the mirror, her face red from being crouched down. Tracy says it's in the Kama Sutra that if a man massages himself with the juice from pomegranate, pumpkin, and cucumber seeds, he'll swell up and stay huge for 6 months. This advice has a kind of Cinderella deadline to it. She sees the look in my face in the mirror and says, "Cripes! Don't take everything so personally." Somewhere due north above Dallas, I'm trying to work up more spit while she tells me the way to make a woman never leave you is to cover her head with nettle thorns and monkey dung. And I'm like, no kidding? Yeah, and if you bathe your wife in buffalo milk and cow bile, any man who uses her will become impotent. And I say, I wouldn't be surprised. And if a woman soaks a camel bone in marigold juice and puts the liquid on her eyelashes, any man she looks at will become bewitched. And in a pinch, you can use a peacock, falcon, or vulture bones. Look it up, she says. It's all in the big book. Somewhere southeast above Albuquerque, my face coated thick as egg white from licking her, my cheeks rug burned from her hair. Tracy says how ram's testicles boiled in sugared milk will restore your virility. And then she says, I didn't mean that the way it sounded. And I thought I was doing pretty good, considering 2 double bourbons, and I've been on my feet for 3 hours at this point. Somewhere southwest above Las Vegas, both of us, our tired legs flew shaky. She shows me what the Kama Sutra calls browsing, and then sucking the mango, and then devouring. Struggling together in our tight little wipe-clean plastic room, suspended in time and place where anything goes. This isn't bondage, but it's close. Gone are the golden old Lockheed Super Constellations, where each port and starboard bathroom was a 2-room suite, a dressing room with a separate toilet room behind a door. The sweat running down the smooth muscles of her, the two of us bucking together, 2 perfect machines doing a job we were designed for. Some minutes were touching with just sliding part of me and the little edges of her getting raw and pulled out. My shoulders leaning back, squared against the plastic wall, the rest of me bucking forward from the waist down. From standing on the floor, Tracy gets 1 foot up on the edge of the sink and leans on her raised knee. It's easier to see ourselves in the mirror, flat and behind the glass. A movie, a download, a magazine picture, somebody else, not us, somebody beautiful, without a life or a future outside this moment. Your best bet on a Boeing 767 is the large center toilet in the rear of the tourist class cabin. You're just plumb out of luck on the Concorde, where the toilet compartments are minuscule, but that's just my opinion. If all you're doing is peeing or doing your contact lenses or toothbrushing, I'm sure they're roomy enough. But if you have any ambition to manage in what the Kama Sutra calls the crow or the Cusade or anything where you'll need more than 2 inches of back and forth motion, you better hope you get a European Airbus 300-310 with its party-sized rear bus tourist class toilets. For the same kind of countertop space and legroom, you can't do better than 2 rear toilets in a British Aerospace 111 for plush. Somewhere northeast above Los Angeles, I'm getting sore, so I ask Tracy to let up, and I say, why do you do this? And she says, what? This. And Tracy smiles. The people you meet behind unlocked doors are tired of talking about the weather. These are people tired of safety. These people have remodeled too many houses. These are tanned people who've given up smoking and white sugar and salt, fat and beef. They're people who've watched their parents and grandparents study and work a lifetime, only end up losing it all, spending everything just to stay alive on a feeding tube, forgetting even how to chew and swallow. My father was a doctor, Tracy says. The place where he's at now, he can't even remember his own name. These men and women sitting behind unlocked doors know a bigger house is not the answer. Neither is a better spouse, more money, or tighter skin. Anything you can acquire, she says, is only another thing you'll lose. The answer is there is no answer. And for real, this is a way heavy moment. No, I say, and I run a finger between her thighs. I mean this. Why do you shave your bush? Oh, that, she says, and rolls her eyes, smiling. It's so I can wear G-string panties. And while I settle on the toilet, Tracy's examining the mirror, not seeing herself as much as checking what's left of her makeup. And with one wet finger she wipes away the smudged edge of her lipstick, and with her fingers she rubs away the little bite marks around her nipples, what the Kama Sutra would call the scattered clouds. And talking to the mirror, she says, the reason I do this circuit is because when you think about it, there's no good reason to do anything. There's no point. These are people who don't want an orgasm as much as they just want to forget everything for just 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, a half an hour. Or maybe when people are treated like cattle, that's just how they act. Or maybe that's just an excuse. Maybe they're just bored. It could be that nobody is made to sit all day in a cramped packing crate full of other people without moving a muscle. We're healthy, young, awake, and alive people, Tracy says. When you look at it, which act is more unnatural? And she's putting back on her blouse and rolling her pantyhose back up. Why do I do anything, she says. I'm educated enough to talk myself out of any plan, to deconstruct any fantasy, to explain away any goal. I'm so smart that I can negate any dream. Me still sitting here naked and tired. The flight crew announces our approach into the greater Los Angeles area, and then the current time and temperature, and then information about connecting flights. And for a moment, this woman and I just stand and listen, looking up at nothing. I do this, because it feels good, she says, and buttons her blouse. Maybe I don't really know why I do it. In a way, this is why they execute killers. Because once you've crossed some line, you just keep crossing them. Both hands behind her back, zipping up her skirt, she says, the truth is I don't really want to know why I do it. I just keep doing it, she says. Because the minute you give yourself a good reason, you'll start chipping away at it. And she steps back into her shoes and she pats her hair on the sides and says, please don't think this was anything special. And unlocking the door, she says, relax, she says. Someday, everything we just said will look like small potatoes to you. And edging out onto the passenger cabin, she says, today is just the first time you've crossed this particular line. And leaving me naked and alone, she says, don't forget to lock the door behind me. And then she laughs and says, that is, if you want it locked anymore. And that was our chapter. So, have a good evening, and we'll see you next time.